class. Welcome to my Unit 9 discussion. Today I'm going to talk about how carceral urbanism, the war on drugs, and the crack meth epidemic all came together and unified in order to spread the ideas that promoted white supremacy, and also the channels that were used to do it back then and some of the channels that we use to do it now. So some of the things we talked about this year in class that relate to this point are stereotypes. Stereotypes are preconceived ideas that we have about somebody based on things we may have seen in the past, in isolated situations, or things we may have heard from somebody else. And now we're applying it to new people. And so we're not giving them a chance to show us the true identity. We're just going based off of how we perceive them to be, based off other people who could be in their same racial class, skin class, or cultural class. And so the way these ideas spread through stereotypes, obviously, it can be seen in films, right? So you have things like the movie Friday, which talks about the urban life for Black people in Los Angeles, California. And you may see some of the actresses playing mothers, like even in Baby Boy, who, you know, were doing drugs, doing crack, you know what I'm saying, doing cocaine. And the ideas back then of the crack baby myth saying that if a mother did crack while the baby was in the womb, the baby would be permanently disabled. Even though it was untrue, these ideas still spread because it sounded like it made sense. You know, of course, you think if you drink alcohol while you're pregnant, of course your baby's gonna come out with problems. So you apply the same thing to any other drug. And so when you have these ideas that are spreading through the media, along with the stereotypes that already exist in the Black communities, now we start to see how the carceral the policing and how that enforcement can also increase these ideas. One thing the teacher spoke about was how in urban schools, oftentimes there's more police force than there is in the more gentrified, wealthier neighborhoods. And so me growing up in this type of neighborhood and my family and hearing their stories, not only is there more police presence, which gives you more chance to run into the cops, but oftentimes you have negative experiences with them. And so having these negative experiences as a kid, it stays with you, and as you grow up and become an adult, you begin to take those ideas with you as well. And so now when a cop pulls you over and you might be 22 or 23, and you know when you were 16, a cop might have took you out of the car and made you sit on the wall and waste your time for an hour and, you know, called you whatever names. Now you're stereotyping him in that same situation, so it all becomes a cycle. And along with the fact that, you know, there was more harsher sentences for people who were doing crack than there was cocaine, even though they were the same drug. And so again, this goes back to the white supremacy, where having that white privilege as property, it gives you certain access and certain benefits that other people don't get to have. One of these benefits being lighter sentences for the same crimes. We had the 3 strikes law, we had the minimums, and these things were designed not only to, you know, punish Black people in the moment, but also make it harder for them to be able to find employment later, because, you know, you get this 3 strikes and now you have to spend all that extra time in prison. When you come out, it's going to be on your record and the world is going to be a completely different place. You know, even 10 years ago, we didn't have the advancements in AI that we do now. The stock market boom that happened, like, you know, there was a lot of opportunities to make money and build wealth, and a lot of opportunities to advance yourself, and a lot of educational opportunities during the pandemic that were giving out even more money in FAFSA, and we were getting like relief bonuses and everything. And these things helped us to pay for school while we were in it. And it's even more horrible because a lot of people who are doing time in prison right now for marijuana convictions, you know, they're still not out of prison. And now marijuana is legal. And so, you know, when you see how this works, now we can tie it into structural racism, because the system is operating on a principle to where not only does it create more racist vehicles to attack us with, the Jim Crow laws, segregation, now we go to the war on drugs, now we go to the policing. It's just multiple layers. If we think back to real estate and how we weren't able to secure loans to be able to get houses in green areas to where we could increase our property value and get discounts on mortgages, and how that creates generational wealth for people who come from the lineage of white supremacy, and it creates general debts for us because we have to, you know, fight to build back what our parents lost. Like in my situation, the only way we could have got that house back is if we were all going to come together and have $600,000, but we didn't, and so we lost it. And, you know, other people wouldn't have to deal with this because the house would have been paid off, and, you know, at that point, they can rent it out, they could sell it, they could split the profits and all go buy individual houses and rinse and repeat and do that for years and years and years. But This is all being said to say how structural racism has not only grown but evolved over time. So we see that just like the de jure racism versus the de facto racism, once racism could no longer be expressed outwardly in a social setting without being shamed, it had to adjust and adapt, and it had to go incognito to where the racism still existed to disadvantage, minorities, and to still advantage white people. But you can never quite name it. You can't challenge it because there's all this red tape behind it. There's all this disguise, all this myth behind it. Oh no, it's for economic development. We want the property values to remain high, and if they come here, it's going to lower the property values. But they can be servants, and we can use them for this and all these other things. And all this is really just going back to benefiting white supremacy because not only do they hold us down in the short term right now, but in the long term, our kids have to deal with this because now it could be a situation to where you can't pay for their schooling because you have to work, and you have to take care of your parents because they didn't save up for retirement, and it's just all these factors that play into it that make it harder for minorities to be able to advance and pursue the American dream because the foundation is just already in shambles. And so my question today would be, how do you think things would be different if defunding the police went a lot farther to where essentially we were all kind of like on a neighborhood watch program, where there would still be police, but instead of actively patrolling the way they do and arresting people, they're more so responding to things that are getting sent to them. So like if the neighborhood watch calls, hey, we're having this type of issue, boom, now they're going. Do you think that would decrease this, or do you think that would make it worse, or do you think that would cause other problems that we're not even considering if something like that happened? So thank you guys. Have a great day.